Welcome in, and thanks so much for being with us on this special edition of In Focus from the Republican National Convention. I'm Pete Servakis in our studios in Milwaukee, just steps away from Fiserv Forum, which hosted this year's RNC. Inside the arena, the party made it official. Donald Trump, now the Republican nominee for president for the third time.
With faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you.
Delegates at the convention also solidified the second half of the ticket, the vice presidential nominee, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance.
I officially accept your nomination to be Vice President of the United States of America.
The Republican National Convention here in Wisconsin rallied Republican voters. Party leaders now optimistic they can carry that momentum forward all the way until November. One of those leaders, Governor Greg Abbott of the great state of Texas. So, Governor, your RNC speech focused heavily on the border. 11 million illegal migrants was the number you threw out there. What could either President Biden do right now or future President Trump do on day one that would immediately give you some help?
Well, actually, it's very easy because as we're talking right now, there are 3 laws on the books already in the United States that Biden is refusing to enforce. One is a law that requires the president to deny illegal entry. Another is a law that requires the president to detain anybody who does enter illegally. A third is a law that requires the president to build border barriers. Texas is doing all 3 of those things. Biden is doing none of those things. We've proven that it works because when we did those 3 things, illegal immigration into the state of Texas has gone down 74%, while it has gone up in New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Those policies work. What I know from talking to President Trump is he will do that and a whole lot more. And so he's already been there before. He saw what he was able to do. He now knows his capabilities even more. You can expect an even more robust border security plan under the new elected President Trump.
You also specifically called out sanctuary cities. You said if they're not going to come see the border, I'm going to send the border to them. What do you say to folks who might be Republicans that live in states with sanctuary cities that say, hey, I voted for Trump in 2020. Why should I have these people coming into my state now?
So I have visited New York on multiple times in the past year. I visited California multiple times in the past year. The Republicans in those states, they cheer that because it exposes what they have long known, and that is the hypocrisy of their Democrat leaders saying, oh, we believe in sanctuary cities, but then when they have to face like 10 migrants, they can't deal with it. And it shows that they're all talk in virtual signaling, but they don't have the capability of living up to the false standards they set.
When you hear mayors in some of these cities say we're just not going to follow immigration law, do you think that should give you the automatic right to say Texas will just do whatever we want at our border?
And that's basically what we're doing. What Texas has done things that the Biden administration says is only the federal authority. And because they are not doing their federal job, Texas is stepping up and we are denying illegal entry. We are detaining people who do cross illegally, and we are building border barriers. We, as a state, are the ones that are actually applying the federal law.
Let's switch to politics for a moment. Obviously, the theme of this convention has largely been let's compare 4 years under President Trump, 4 years under President Biden. If Biden drops out of the race, does that argument go away and now are Republicans at a disadvantage that you made your case before that happened?
Not at all, because if you look at the Biden-Harris policies or the Democrat parties across the board, you look at what Schumer has enacted, look at what the Democrats in the House stand for. The exact same policies that Joe Biden is pushing down the throats of our fellow Americans. They all stand for open border policies, and they haven't retracted from that at all. And so one thing that Americans know, regardless of which Democrat they put up to run for president, they stand for the exact same open border policies, the big spending policies that have led to inflation. If Democrats are going to be in charge of the White House, you as a fellow American, you should expect you're going to be paying more at the price of the pump, more for groceries, more for rent. Your inflation is not going down because they're taking your tax dollars and giving it away to some people who have not been able to repay their student loans. What about all the truck drivers who didn't have a student loan? They got to pay bills too. They're not getting any money, but they are having to pay more for the gas they pay for.
Do you think other states that are not growing as fast as Texas can pull off what you've done? I mean, you mentioned people want more money in their pockets. No state income tax in Texas. How do you pull that off?
So any state can do what Texas has done. To provide the setting, we have the largest budget surplus of any state. We are returning tax money to the taxpayers. We have led the country in economic development at 9 years in a row, every year that I've been governor. We do it because we have no income tax. We have a very reasonable, modest regulatory environment. And Texas, as a state, truly partners with the businesses that come to our state. Every state can replicate exactly what we did, but especially the Democrat states, they refuse to do so.
You mentioned business. Elon Musk, obviously with already a large presence down there, now says he's moving SpaceX. My friends that live in Texas, one of the things that they do mention as a concern with all the growth is the power grid. How well set up are you to sustain the rate of growth that you've had?
I've signed more than 15 laws that strengthen the power grid. Texas now produces more power than California and New York combined. And we're on a track where between now and 2030, we'll be adding 50% more power to our power grid. No state anywhere, hardly any country anywhere, will be able to produce as much power as the state of Texas will.
Governor, if Trump-Vance, the ticket wins in November, would you consider a cabinet post?
So listen, I think the most important political job in America is President of the United States. I think the second most important political job in America is Governor of Texas, because if we lose Texas, we lose America. And so I'm going to continue to be governor. I'm running for re-election in 2026 to keep Texas, Texas.
Are you confident with all the growth that Texas can stay red? You got a lot of people from a lot of different states moving to your state right now.
So, and that's why I want to remain governor, to make sure that we keep Texas not only governmentally, but just through our ethos. We remain a state that will remain a red state. And that's my job as the leader of the state of Texas, to make sure we remain red and we keep Texas playing its role pivotally in the future of the United States of America.
A sincere thanks to Governor Abbott for sitting down with us while he was here in Wisconsin. Up next, we had to get some Ohio flavor into this show. We're going to chat with one of the party's leaders in the Buckeye State. But first, let's take a look at a short highlight from the RNC.
Let's make the 45th President of the United States the 47th President of the United States. Let's elect Republicans up and down the ballot, and let's heed the call of our party's nominee to fight for these United States. Thank you.
We are no longer just in a battle between two opposing political parties. We are, but it's not just ours versus D's anymore. We're now in the midst of a struggle between two completely different visions of who we are as Americans and what our country will be.
Welcome back into this special edition of In Focus from the RNC. That was House Speaker Mike Johnson. Our show rolls on now with the Ohio lawmaker who formally nominated Senator J.D. Vance as vice president.
Are we ready to nominate a vice president? How about you, Ohio?
We caught up with Lieutenant Governor John Husted during the convention to chat about the Republican message and his own political future.
Lieutenant Governor Husted, thanks for being here. You obviously made some history when you formally nominated J.D. Vance as the vice presidential pick. What do you think he would deliver, not just for Ohio, but for the Rust Belt, states like here in Wisconsin, like Pennsylvania, if the Trump-Vance ticket wins?
He understands what living a tough life is all about, what the struggles of working people face every day. He gets it because he lived it. He is literally the American dream embodied in his rise from poverty to potentially the vice presidency. He understands all that. He gets that made in America is good for middle America. He gets the fact that open borders bring crime to communities, they lower wages for working people, and he understands that backing the police is incredibly important because that's the neighborhoods that the people that don't have a voice, that when crime hits them, it means people are unsafe, that means investment leave their communities. He gets all that, and he will be an amazing spokesperson for President Trump's Made in America strategy.
A couple things I want to follow up on there. Let's start with the jobs aspect. I know that's something you've focused on not only as Lieutenant Governor, but in your prior role as Secretary of State, Speaker of the Ohio House. are the Republicans slowly shifting away from maybe being seen as that party of more corporate America, big business, kind of top-down economics, trickle-down economics, and more the party of the working man? It seems like that's been a common theme, not just in this convention, but ever since Donald Trump became the face of the party.
I don't think we're moving that way. We are there because our voters are there. That's who votes for Republicans these days, the people who get up, go to work every day. We're not governed by the coastal elites, which is what the Democratic Party is. We're made up of working men and women who, work in manufacturing, that serve as our police and fire safety people. They're nurses in our hospitals. That's who the Republican Party is. JD understands that. He speaks to that group of people. Donald Trump understands that. Those are the people that come to his rallies, and that's who the Republican Party is these days. We're the party of conservative values in terms of hard work, personal responsibility, family, faith, freedom, patriotism. We're not the party of woke. We're party of middle. We're party of middle America and middle class values.
So following up on that, I mean, one of the main themes that's been stressed here at the convention is law and order, public safety. In your opinion, if a Trump-Vance ticket were to win, how much of an impact could they make in cities like Milwaukee, like Cleveland, that have Democratic mayors that have historically, when former President Trump was in office, said we're not going to follow every executive order that he does? I mean, can the White House really make an impact on crime if there's not cooperation with some of these mayors in our largest cities across the Midwest?
So first, they'll be willing to do it. First, they'll be willing to provide federal resources if a mayor wants it. And if crime and ruthless rule of law are not happening in the city, that will be the mayor's fault of that particular city. They're going to see at the federal level with Donald Trump as president that the police will be supported, both with tangible assets and with the voice of the president. And you're seeing this in the places where crime and the rule of law don't prevail. Chaos and criminality do. And mayors are waking up to this. There are even some Democrat mayors that understand that if they don't keep people in their property safe, people in their resources leave and go somewhere else. And so that's the message that the Republicans have. I even think some Democrats understand that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the Democratic Party have lurched too far to the left and are not protecting people, and those people are leaving and voting for Donald Trump.
We always talk about wave elections. I mean, the narrative post-2020 was that with the COVID pandemic, it was going to be very, very difficult for Trump to get reelected, right? It was a very just difficult situation that was thrown his way. When you look at what's happening now with inflation, with some of the crime numbers in some of these cities post-COVID, do you feel like this election is really teed up to be a red wave election for your party?
I don't know about that, but I do know that they have a clear decision to make. They've seen what 4 years were like with Donald Trump. They've seen what 4 years are like under Joe Biden. They see a guy who gets knocked to the ground with a bullet and literally gets back up his feet and says, keep fighting. And then they see another guy that can barely finish a sentence. They know what the clear choice is, and I think America is going to decide with Donald Trump.
I can't let you go, Lieutenant Governor, before asking you, obviously, if the ticket's victorious, Governor DeWine will appoint a replacement. Obviously, he's also term locked, so there will need to be a new governor as well. Would you have your eye on either one of those jobs? Is there one that would jump out to you?
I've been preparing to run for governor, and that's what my focus will be. And we shouldn't focus, though, on anything about any election beyond 2024. We need to make sure that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance win, that Bernie Moreno, our Senate candidate in Ohio, wins, and that we have the blessings of success to consider about what that future might look like. But every minute that we spend focused on anything beyond this November's election is not the right decision, because we need to focus on the fact that Joe Biden is not prepared to be president, neither is Kamala Harris, and that the left-wing agenda of Democrats in Washington is out of step with the working people of America. That's what we need to focus on, not anything beyond that.
Lieutenant Governor Husted, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Still ahead on In Focus, the two Capitol Hill Republicans tasked with major roles this fall, how they plan to win a majority in the Senate and hold the majority in the U.S. House. And one of those pivotal purple states, maybe the most purple state of all, is the state of Wisconsin, where we are today. President Joe Biden won Wisconsin by just 20,000 votes in 2020. Welcome back into In Focus. We're continuing our show from the site of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. U.S. Senator Steve Daines chairs the National Republican Senatorial Committee. The Republican from Montana stopped here in studio to explain why he thinks Americans are ready to shake up Washington this fall.
So, Senator Daines, the story that's really dominated Convention Week, not a pleasant story, but obviously the assassination attempt against former President Trump, the Republican nominee. How do you feel like your party has responded to that?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was a sobering moment. It's one of those images you never forget. You never forget where you were at when you heard the news. It's a reminder we were a quarter inch away from having a memorial service this week instead of a Republican National Convention nominating President Trump. Sadly, of course, there was a fire chief that was killed, 2 others wounded, but I think it put a pause certainly on some of the hateful rhetoric that's out there, but it's not lost on so many of us that the temperature has been turned up against President Trump, equivalencies to Hitler. He's the threat to democracy, he's an existential threat to America. That's really taken the temperature up really too high.
I wanted to ask you about something you said. We're going to shift back towards the politics now, of course, with the RNC in Milwaukee. You recently said Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Senate Democrats have failed America. You don't have to ask us. You can ask the American people. Mm-hmm. That was your direct quote. I know you cited things like border security and also inflation. Those also heavy themes throughout the convention here. Do you think on the trail, Republicans are doing a good enough job right now of saying, okay, this is what we're against and here's our proposals going forward? Do you feel like you're making a good enough argument of this is what we will do if we regain majorities and the presidency?
Well, they always say in politics, in an election, you have to make 2 arguments. One is to fire the current administration, to fire the incumbent, and number 2 is to hire the challenger, to hire the new administration. Look, I think the American people have been very clear now that they're rejecting these far left, very liberal policies coming from the Biden administration. I mean, it has been certainly this wide open southern border that is more than an immigration debate. This is about national security. We literally have terrorists coming across the southern border. 40-year high inflation. The average American family has seen at least 20% plus increases in costs since Biden took office. These are pocketbook issues. Foreign policy, the nation, the world, I mean, the chaos we see because of a weak commander-in-chief. So I think that case has been litigated strongly. Now we've got to talk about what we are for. We're talking about reducing the reckless spending, which was inflationary. It's about securing the southern border. Look, all that has to be done there, not to oversimplify a complicated issue, just go back to the policies that President Trump had in place before he left office, policies that President Biden reversed through executive order.
How fast can Republicans, with, say, you regain the White House and you take majorities in both chambers of Congress, how fast do you think it's realistic to say we can bring down inflation?
Yeah, well, I think first you'll send a very strong message to financial markets around the world that you've got better fiscal leaders in charge. But first you've got to stop the reckless spending. You realize Kamala Harris has broken more ties than any vice president in our nation's history. She broke ties on the $1.9 trillion COVID stimulus package when there was $1 trillion of leftover spending in late 2020. The Democrats take control, ignited inflation under $1.9 trillion. She's got to stop that. That can be immediate. We will not pass a bill like that. And then you had the so-called Inflation Reduction Act that many believe was nearly $2 trillion of additional spending and some taxes, these mandates. Some of those we can undo through action, but I think you can move rather quickly because it's just stopping, just not continuing to feed the inflationary fire with this reckless spending.
If former President Trump is to get elected and maybe call you about cabinet position, something like ambassador to China where you have a background or something dealing with business and the economy, is that something you're open to?
Well, I tell you, I speak with President Trump frequently. We text frequently. I'm a big fan of President Trump. We were working very closely together on getting the Senate majority, get candidates in place that can win in November. But one thing I've told the president is be careful about pulling senators out of the United States Senate because we need those Republican senators, and there'll be plenty of individuals who'll be qualified to fill some of these important slots. These are not seats that are easy to win and easy to hold, and why I think the most important thing we can make sure President Trump passes is a robust, enduring Republican Senate majority.
Of course, thanks from us to Senator Daines for stopping in. Congressman Richard Hudson from the swing state of North Carolina was a featured speaker at the RNC this week. He's the chair of the National Republican Congressional Committee. My colleague Reuben Jones spoke with him about the Republican ticket and the party's message.
I think J.D. Vance is a huge asset. You know, here's a guy who's lived the American dream. He grew up in poverty. He joined the Marine Corps, served his country in Iraq, got a really good education, wrote a best-selling book, made into a movie. I mean, it's quite an incredible story. Now serving in the United States Senate. I think this rags to riches kind of story will really resonate with people in North Carolina.
Democrats are already hitting him on what they say are extreme stances on abortion. Do you worry that will affect some of the more independent voters?
Look, Democrats are extreme on abortion. I mean, if you look at the two parties and what we stand for, Democrats, every single Democrat in Congress voted to allow abortion up until the moment of birth, funded by taxpayers for any reason. That's an extreme position. Even pro-choice people don't agree with that position. Republicans, there is no one unified position. But I think most people agree there ought to be some reasonable limits. I think President Trump's made it very clear there won't be any kind of national abortion law. And so Democrats are grasping at straws because their policies are so bad that the American people are going to reject them.
There are very few, very few swing House races in November because of redistricting, because of gerrymandering. Are you confident that Republicans will be able to maintain the majority? How, and I'm sure you are, and how big would you like that to get?
You're exactly right. I mean, there are only 35 congressional seats out of 435 that were won by 5% or less. So very few swing districts. And so it makes those very important. It also means there's going to be piles of money spent in those very few races. That's why, again, I think the biggest key is having really good candidates. And that's what I think gives us the edge.
So that'll do it for this special edition of In Focus this week. Thanks, as always, so much for being with us and spending part of your day with us here on Spectrum News. Goodbye.
You know something? I see the greatest tag team of my life standing upon us, getting ready to straighten this country out. Throw a fist in the air, let me see where you're at. Say Trump, Trump, say Trump, Trump.